Hi everyone, in the last video I showed you how to use the basic workflow through the Python KvW program, and in this video I'm going to clear up a lot of the other features that are here that are slightly more advanced but worth knowing what they're about and how to use them. So we learned to load the files and pick the limits and run the answers and look at the answers in the grid. Just want to clear up perhaps the extra buttons and the functions of the result window and some of the implications of that. So for example, we would typically use this by choosing our limits, running an answer, getting a result. Perhaps we would choose here I didn't have any limits, so I'll choose some limits, bring the sliders in, and then run again, and you can see that we're starting to get a build-up of the same file, same star, same trace, but with different limits and slightly, well, in this case slightly different error. Actually come up with a very close answer, and so you can build up results with different limits set for the same file. But bear in mind that you could also browse to a completely different star, this one for example, and if we look at that we'll see it's totally different data. It's not like the trace at all that we've just had. It's a completely different star, and I could run the algorithm on that, and as you can see I'm mixing up results from different stars in the same window. Now no problem, to view them, if you double click you obviously see this star, and if you double click on this one you see the result for this one. So they're all fine, they all understand what they're about, and if any reason you want to go back to a star to put the values back into the window, the whole window, so that the settings are there, you can use the reload selected. So I could reload this star and it would be the values would be back in, and we could get cracking again on that star, without having to go and remember the name of the file and browse for it separately, and it also remembers the limits that you'd set. So reload selected is a useful button. So we've looked at plot selected, which is the same as double clicking. Reload selected to load a particular trace back, could be a different star than the one you last used. Delete selected we've covered. Clear all results is really very obvious, and copy all to clipboard is useful. So if I go back to running, so let me just clear this, and a notepad, if I do a paste, a control V, you can see that the last run that we ran is in the clipboard. But if I go back to the program and I've got lots of answers and I copy all to clipboard, and then I go back to here and put a couple of spaces and do another control V, you can see that all the answers are there for all of the runs that are in the result window. However, beware of course, because here we've got mixtures of different stars so you have to be a bit careful. Typically you would do this when you've got lots of results for the same star. You would copy to the clipboard. Now I could put the name of the star in the clipboard answers here. I just wanted to keep this a bit clean, so maybe we'll decide as a group that I should add extra information into what's in the clipboard. But for now, be aware that what you get pasted is what's in the grid, and there could be mixtures of stars in there. So okay, so I think those are all the buttons. Clear all results clears the window. Those are all the buttons that deal with the results and multiple runs, etc. So let's have a look now at how you might choose limits. We know how to do it manually, but how about this auto choose limits? If I click that and you watch the limits, I'll make sure the limits are reset. If you look at the limit information there, I do an auto choose limits. Boom, you can see it's done something. So what has it done? Let's have a look. We click on the plot and we see that it has made a good stab at finding the shoulders of this particular curve. So what the algorithm does that I've added in here is it finds the minimum point and it crawls up the arrays of data until it sees the gradients of the points changing by a certain amount, and then it says we're on the shoulders, and I'll set the limits there, and it works quite well. So that's a very good way of getting going. That's one way of choosing limits. But one thing that we have seen in recent emails, and what David does often, is to take a magnitude level and choose equal limits on either side of the curve at a certain magnitude. And it's quite nice to be able to do it at, say, 13.5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and see the difference in the variations of the answers. So I've added an automatic system for this. So let's close this, let's reset the limits. There are no results in the window, and I'm going to point you towards this bulk run on equal mag button. So what this does is it will, for any trace, it will look at the range of data, and it will create limits on either side of the curve at equal magnitude. So I'll click it, and you can see that it runs a batch, and so it has now. So if we double click on the top result, we can see that the limits were set, I believe these were set at 13.3, and of course it's the nearest to 13.3. So let's just close that and let's look at the next one, and this one has chosen it across 13.4, which is nicely on the shoulders. And I go down a couple here, go to this one, you can see that it's gone down and chosen the nearest it can get to, because obviously the curve is moving quite fast, at I guess this is 13.7. Okay, yes, because that point there is closest to 13.7, and that point there is closest to 13.7. So this is a way of bulk getting the equal magnitude limits set. And of course this is where the copy to clipboard comes in handy, so that you can grab quite quickly, Control V, all of those values, and we can see the variations in the values here as we go down, and the errors, the variations in the errors. So this could be useful for quick analysis of a curve and getting lots of results in one simple click. Okay, so now so what have we done? We've looked at how to auto choose limits. We've looked at bulk run on equal mag. Now I'm going to ask you to ignore pick limits by mag, because it's a partially developed, I've realized I've left this button on and I've partially developed it. It is going to allow the user to select a magnitude and just select the limits on the magnitude. The bulk run is currently working at 0.1 magnitude steps, but the pick limits by mag is you're going to better put in an exact magnitude and choose it. Now that isn't working at the moment, and it will work soon. So what else can I tell you about this? Okay, I think I've demonstrated this before, but you can, this button here, plot latest run results, is basically just looking at the latest run results, which is exactly the same as double clicking the latest result, as you can see. So it's just a button to do what you normally do by selecting and plotting a selected. Okay, so it's of limited use, I guess. What is quite interesting is showing the raw and the interpolated data. This, I think I've mentioned, basically the algorithm has to have equally spaced samples in time, and so this is just a way that you can look at what the algorithm has done part way through its work to deal with this. You can zoom into the data and look at it in great detail by using the zoom and dragging a little bit of it, and you can see the actual data and the interpolated data. Now again, that is just for a sanity check. It just shows you what's going on in the algorithm. I guess for some very sparse traces it might be more interesting, but it's there, and I'm just showing you what that does. And lastly, I'm going to show you the options. The options are things I could build up in the future. It talks about the number of decimal places that's an option that you see displayed. You can increase the number of decimal places. The initial width of the plots and the height of the plots, you can increase or decrease those. The auto pick gradient factor is the algorithm that chooses the shoulders of the that I demonstrated, the auto pick limits. You can change how many times the gradient has to change before it picks the shoulders. I find that 3 is the best value, but you can play with that if it's of interest. And other things to do with the style of the plot, so the marker size, the color of markers. If I change that to I don't know, olive, and I don't like perhaps to have any kind of line, I can say none, and I can get rid of the grid, for example. So if we click OK to those ones and look, we can see that now we've got different colored points, we've got rid of the lines, and we've got rid of the grids. So you know, the options are there to be played with, and you know, there are certain things I think that we would like to add in the future, but just to show you that options is a thing, and it remembers these options, and if I believe it remembers them if I close the program and press OK, and then I rerun the program and I look, you can see it has remembered few. I'm not sure, I've tested that for a while. As you can see, it has remembered the settings that I last set in the options. Okay, so I think that covers, sorry, a bit of a long video, but I think that covers all of the features of the program now, and I hope that was of some use. So thanks again for listening. Bye bye.